Okay, good morning class. Before we proceed to our discussion, let us pray first. Who can lead the prayer?
Ma'am.
Okay, Miss Sanyano, lead the prayer. Today, our topic is about the cycling materials of ecosystem. So, for today's discussion, what you gotta learn is the rules of organisms in the cycling of materials, how materials cycle in an ecosystem, particularly describe the rules of organisms in the cycling of materials, and trace the flow of materials in the biogeochemical cycle of the ecosystem. So, before we proceed with our discussion, I have a short activity for you. And I'm going to show you pictures, and after, you're going to answer the questions. So, here is the first picture. Analyze the picture. Then, the second picture. So, here is the first question. Yes, water pollution. What else? Yes, marine life. Okay, the second question is, how does this environmental problem affect our marine ecosystem? Yes, Miss Kabug? That's right. Now let us get to know the so-called functioning system. The question is, what kind of environmental problem is shown in the picture? Okay, Miss Kanya? Yes? Ano ba meron sa functioning system nito? So, a functioning system uses both energy and recycling of chemical and nutrients necessary for life. Yung energy na ito usually came from the outside and flows through in a one-way direction. Katulad din ng itong food chain. You can see here, merong one-way direction ng energy. Dahil dito, the energy, kailangan yun constantly masupply sa ecosystem. So, the chemical nutrient naman that referring here, in the form of carbon dioxide, water, oxygen, and other important minerals are obtained from the physical environment and flow through the ecosystem in a cyclical manner. Pag sinabi nating physical environment, yan ay binubuo ng physical and chemical. Examples are wind, soil, rainfall, climate, and other obtainable nutrients sa ating ecosystem. Yung cyclical manner naman na tinatawag, ito yung tinutukoy sa cycle o pag-ikot ng mga nutrients na yan sa ating ecosystem, which help in maintaining and support nitong chemical nutrients nito and mga existing life sa isang ecosystem. Dito sa food chain, you can see that it started from the sun. Then, yung heat from the sun will be captured by the plants, which is the producer. Then, gagamitin yan for manufacturing its food. Then, yung plant na ito will be eaten by the primary consumer. Then, yung primary consumer, kakainin naman ito ng secondary consumer. Nang dahil doon, pumapasok ang ating tinatawag na balanced ecosystem. So, it is important that we understand how cycle works to our ecosystem at para aware tayo kung paano natin ito palagaan. Siyempre, paggambala sa ating natural cycle of sa ating environment, for example, the carbon cycle na nagdulot ng threat sa ating tinatawag na global warming. So, ano nga yung global warming? Yes, Mr. Balatukan. Yes, tama. And also, dito na pumapasok ang tinatawag nating biogeochemical cycle. So, ano nga ba ang biogeochemical cycle? So, biogeochemical cycles is the flow of chemical elements and compounds between living organisms and the physical environment. Itong mga cycles na ito helps to sustain the ecosystem. Also, sustain the life that exists in an ecosystem. So, the biogeochemical cycles, ito yung mga water cycle, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle, and phosphorus cycle. So, let us get to know them. The materials and minerals na dumadaan dito pwedeng among organism, in between organisms, and physical environment. Sila tinatawag nating self-sustaining natural life. So, it means ito ang natural na nangyari sa ating ecosystem at ito ay natural na tumutulong so that the ecosystem ay patuloy sa pag-function and maging sustainable o masuportahan ang needs nila like foods. So, this time I have an short activity or challenge, which I call it a genius challenge. I have 5 statements and you need to identify it whether the statement is true or false. First statements, all plants and animals are composed largely of water in their bodies and depend on water for life. True or false? Yes, true. Very good. Next statement, animals breathe out oxygen from the atmosphere and plants take it out through their leaves. True or false? False. Because animals breathe in oxygen and the plants take it through their leaves. Third statement, nitrogen makes up almost 80% of the atmosphere. Animals and plants, however, cannot use it directly. True or false? Yes, true. Okay, fourth statement, both animals and plants release oxygen back into the air in the form of carbon dioxide as a waste product of respiration. True or false?
False.
Yes, false. Because both animals and plants release carbon, not oxygen. Last, phosphorus compounds are released by means of erosion of rock where their compounds are dissolved in the water. Answer is true. Yes, very good. Yung patuloy na circulation ng water between the seas, ocean, air, land, and all living things ay tawag natin sa process na yun ay hydrological or the water cycle. Hydrological cycle kapag ang sun, hinit niya yung ocean and other bodies of water. Then, it will evaporate into the atmosphere and that is the first process and that is what we call, ano nga yan? Yes, correct. Evaporation. So, yung animals and also humans, naglulus ng water into the air kapag nag-breathe out or sweat. Yung plants naman, naglulus yun ng water vapor through their leaves na tinatawag naman nating transpiration process. So, yung water, kapag nag-evaporate yun into the atmosphere at magsasama-sama yun para mag-form ng clouds, yung formation ng clouds na yun ay tinatawag naman nating na condensation. So, itong clouds na to, kapag mabigat na yan, yung water droplets na yan, babagsak yan sa earth in a different forms, pwedeng in the form of rain, snow, sleet, or the hill. So, ang tawag natin sa process na ito is precipitation. Yung ibang water babagsak sa land and ang iba babalik sa sea and then babalik again dun sa may source. So, that's how water cycle happens in the ecosystem or our environment. So, this is the reason why yung environment natin ay hindi nawawala ng water because of water cycle. Then, nagkakaroon naman ng disruption dito dahil nga sa mga activities again ng mga tao. So, ano nga yung mga activities na nasira dito? Yes, correct. Katulad ng overpumping. Overpumping our aquifers faster than they replenish, polluting the aquatic environments from runoff from household, commercial, and industrial sources. So, yung aquifers na ito yung layer ng earth na kung saan mayroong water. Yung mga layers na yan, doon rin yung mga water nagpo-flow. So, kapag nasobrahan yung pagpapump niyan at hindi napapalitan na kagad, it affects the water cycle. So, yung carbon, kapag na-remove siya from the carbon dioxide in the air by plants due to process na tinatawag natin photosynthesis para makagawa ng carbohydrates, which is the vital source of these plants and energy. So, yung carbon lock up yan sa plant cells at ita-transfer yan directly to animals. Kapag sila ay kinain ng animals na yun, or indirectly kinain yung animal na yun, both plants and animals mag-release sila ng carbon back to the air in the form of carbon dioxide. And that is by wasting products or respiration. So, itong mga soil bacteria naman na to, nagdi-decompose sila ng mga dead animals. Then, plants, as then, nagre-respire din sila. So, respire, ibig sabihin, nagbe-breath. O, yung humihinga din. So, dahil nag-respire sila, nagre-release din sila ng carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Kaya lang, may mga activities na nagagambala ang cycle nito. Katulad na lamang ng combustion or burning of fuels. So, ito ay dito na nagkakaroon ng tinatawag natin greenhouse. Yun nga, magdudulot yun ng problem sa ating Earth's atmosphere that cause of having changes of weather patterns. Yung madalas na pag-ulan, pagkakaroon ng El Nino at El Niña, which might affect also not only the organisms and environment but also as human beings. So, this is how carbon cycle happens in the ecosystem. So, next, biogeochemical cycle is called oxygen cycle. So, what is oxygen cycle nga ba? Ng water, yung oxygen ay very essential for most living organisms, especially as humans. So, animals, nagbe-breathe in sila ng oxygen from atmosphere and plants take in through their leaves. So, yung animals, nagbe-breathe in sila ng oxygen from the atmosphere. Then, yung plants, nagtitake in through their leaves. Both animals and plants gumagamit ng oxygen during respiration para makapag-release ng energy from the food to power all their activities. So, although those plants and animals nagtitake in ng oxygen all the time, pero itong plants ginagamit lang yung oxygen only at night. Kapag daytime, ito na mga plants na ito, nag-undergo ng photosynthesis tapos nag-release sila ng oxygen into the atmosphere as its waste product. So, itong animals naman, nagbe-breathe in sila ng oxygen at ginagamit nila yun to release energy through cellular respiration. So, yung plants, nagre-respire at take in din sila ng oxygen, pero kapag gabi, hindi sila nag-photosynthesize. So, hindi sila nakapag-produce ng waste oxygen. Instead, ang ginagawa ng mga plants na ito, nagtitake in sila ng oxygen na kailangan nila for respiration from the atmosphere. So, with that, may mga activities na ginagawa ang mga tao na nakaka-disrupt sa oxygen cycle. Ito yung clearing photosynthesizing vegetation faster than it is replaced can increase the amount of carbon dioxide and reduce the oxygen content in the air. Ibig sabihin, ang pagpuputol ng mga puno, halaman at hindi pagpapalit, so mas mabilis ang pagkaubos ng mga ito. Kapag nangyari yon, ang mga organisms na dependent sa oxygen ay maapektuhan dahil mga hindi na nga enough yung amount of oxygen na need nila. So, this is how the oxygen cycle happens in the ecosystem. Ang organisms namatay or naglabas ng waste product or material, yung decomposing organisms, usually yung mga decomposers, binabalik nila yung phosphorus sa soil. So, tapos yung mga phosphorus naman, nahalo sa water, and yung mangyayari, dyan ay magpiprecipitate yan or magdideposit yan, saka magbabalik yan at ma-elevate yan for sa mga geological process tulad ng volcanoes, landslide, earthquakes, and etc. So, as you can see here in the picture, the yellow rectangle, these are the reservoir or resources of phosphorus in our ecosystem. And the red arrow in the pathway affected by humans, yung mga human activities na nagdi-disrupt ng phosphorus cycle is yung pagmamining. So that's all for today, class. So please study our discussion today, then we will having a short quiz for tomorrow. So you may go now.